better never ends. In health, in performance, no matter your starting point, you can always strive for better. My name's Charlie Goodchild, I'm your host, and this is the Better Never Ends podcast. We've made it our mission to share with you the expertise and wisdom of role models and leading experts in their field, teaching us about how we can be better, telling stories about their journey to better, and inspiring you to discover yours.
Today we are welcoming the very comfortable Liam Holmes. So Liam has just been very kind to compliment our surroundings and our studio. He's sitting very relaxed and comfy on our sofa. So today we're talking about nutrition. We covered some questions in our prep for this, and what we're really hoping this conversation leads to is actually we're going to go down some rabbit holes. I think that's what we're going to try and do. So we got some standard nutrition questions. I know the audience will be keen to hear the basics, and then we're going to go deeper, right? So Liam ran his own business for a little while and has recently moved on to march on, and I'll hand over to Liam now to give a bit of an overview of his journey so far, and to feel free to go a bit deeper on this if you want to go back why you became a nutritionist perhaps, but certainly what you're doing now and yeah, over to you, Liam.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Yeah, it's great to be on, mate. I've been, like I said to you, I've watched a few of the podcasts. I think it's done an incredible job. So hopefully, like you say, we can provide some advice and guidance for people on nutrition. So my name's Liam Holmes, and my background is actually in football. I actually started sports therapy. I did my undergrad in sports therapy and went into football relatively early. Like I was in my third year, did my placement at Fulham Football Club, and then it snowballed. Once I left uni, I went straight into football. So I was right in at the deep end in Premier League football. Yeah. And my career was around the medical team. I didn't do nutrition as my undergrad, and when I was in the football clubs, it was relatively early in terms of the nutrition space. There wasn't too many nutritionists in and around that kind of environment. The practices were maybe a little bit outdated, but during my time, the first 5-6 years, the growth of nutrition, or the importance of nutrition and S&C and all of this, started to accelerate. So that's where my interest started to kind of peak in nutrition. So it was whilst I was at Fulham, I did my master's in nutrition at University of Chester, and then was very lucky. Like a few series of events happened where people in front of me left. So the guy that was running the nutrition program at Fulham left, so I ran that. I then have an opportunity to go to Republic of Ireland when I was working in the medical team and do some nutrition stuff there, and that was it really. So I was in and around the sport, in and around elite football for around I'd say 13-14 years. So I left Fulham, went to Tottenham Hotspur, worked under a guy called Matt Lovell there, did some of the medical side of things at Fulham, at Spurs as well. Then it was at Spurs I kind of had this crossroads where I'd been in football quite a long time, and my pathway in terms of nutrition element within it was a little bit blocked. So I started doing CrossFit, and I got offered a role to run a clinic in a CrossFit gym called CrossFit Bold in Wandsworth in I don't know the year, a long time ago. But I didn't run my own business. I've never done it, so I was just like, yeah, cool. I'll see a few clients in in the evenings, and that just snowballed. It really did, and got some good results. And then a few people started to kind of say to other gyms, oh, we've got a nutritionist. Like when they were talking, oh, we're looking for someone. Oh, we've got Liam here. He does all day a week. So I started doing days at other gyms, and then I just had this time where I was like, right, what am I going to do? Football's a young man's game, so it's a lot of travel. It's very intense, very unsociable hours, and I'd done it. Like it was something that the novelty hadn't worn off because I'm a big football fan, but it had worn off in terms of like the challenge. I think we spoke about this just now. Like the something new wasn't there, or being able to kind of change things because you're in quite a big organisation.
Yeah, you hit your ceiling, but
it was challenging. You're absolutely right. So it was new, fresh, like running my own business. So CrossFit was something I was really passionate about. It was on its growth period at that point. So yeah, I started to run the PH Nutrition, which was my previous business, and was very lucky. Worked at some cool gyms, CrossFit Shape Smith, Swip, Slevin, a few others, and I've still stayed in football. I was working with FC Copenhagen, consulting, because one of my pals was the head of performance there. So I still stayed in that elite sport, but then left there, did a little bit of a Celtic recently, but now I'm at March On Supplements. So I'm now the head of nutrition there, and he wrapped the business up.
Very good.
A few months ago.
Well, what's interesting is that you've come from this big performance background, and very deliberately, because you like it and you're interested in it, and then you said that you got some good results as soon as you went into sort of general population stuff. You got good results. Do you think that's a coincidence?
I don't think it's the goal was always. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think the goal was always to take what we did with elite athletes and distill it down and make it more applicable, more practical to the everyday trainer. Someone that was just trying to get a little bit leaner, trying to improve their performance, trying to go to their first competition and perform well. And what we tried to do, I think for me, it was just simplification of it. I think a lot of the times when you're in elite environments, the players or the athletes, they often have coaches advising them, so they don't have to think or make their own decisions as much. And I mean, there's positives and negatives to that, but they're just like, right, you tell me to do this, I'll do it, for the most part. But the everyday consumer has to make their own decisions, and we know, which we'll probably get into, we're bombarded with incredible amount of information, especially with nutrition, so it's quite hard to decipher what actually you should be doing. And I think I just came in and was like, look, this is it, we're going to simplify this, we're going to follow these processes. And they were like, oh yeah, that sounds a lot easier than what I was doing, and in terms of restricting all of this, food groups or doing this weird and wonderful method. And they started to get results, and obviously then, I mean, like any business, you start to get referrals, people start to get results. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I lost 7 kilos, like working with Liam. Oh, fantastic. Like, what was you doing? He's like, the basics, just consistently done well. So it was that kind of, but then I had that performance background where if it did need to get a little bit more technical or a little bit more advanced, I'd had experience in that.
Great. So let's talk about those basics then, because this is, I think most people roughly know what they are. They roughly know instinctively what good nutrition basics is. So let's go through them, and then we'll try and see if there's any nuance to that stuff as well.
Yeah. I think you're right in terms of a lot of people know what they should be doing, but it's the implementation. Like, we don't have a knowledge problem, we have a behavioural problem, and it's being able to do it consistently. So for me, the basics are eating to the level of activity that you're asking your body to do, okay? Now you have this kind of dual thing that you need to worry about here, like your goal, personal goal, and what you're asking your body to do. So my goal is fat loss, and I'm training 5 times a week. My goal is muscle gain, and I'm, training for high rocks, or whatever that is. And as long as you can have like this, you can then just identify what you need to do in terms of the amounts that you're eating. Calories are the amount that you eat is probably the key thing that most people need to focus on at first. If you don't do that and you disregard that, then you're going to find it challenging to have the energy to perform. You're going to find it challenging to elicit any kind of body composition change or even maintain your weight. And if you don't understand that, then you're just going to constantly be struggling through times of where you have lots of energy, where you don't have enough energy. And for me, identifying that is the big pillar. So what we call targets.
Why does this matter physiologically? So why does the calories part matter for someone who has a performance goal?
Well, overall energy is going to be one of the key determinants of your performance. So if you're not providing your body with the correct amount of carbohydrates for the level of activity that you're asking it to do, you're going to fall short. Okay, you can't cheat physiology. Like you can't go and run an ultra marathon and underfuel it. You cannot do it. And if you don't have enough protein, you're not going to recover. You're not going to be able to repair and regenerate your muscle tissue and connective tissue to be able to enhance the stimulus that you're doing from the training perspective.
And am I right in saying that even the recovery process requires energy? So you need the ingredients, but the ingredients are useless unless you have energy in order to provide the process of repair, right?
Yeah.
So that's carbohydrate again, to some extent.
In terms of a recovery, recovery is a multifactorial thing. So if you're looking at it from an energy perspective or performance perspective, yes, carbohydrate, glycogen is going to be one of the key determinants of recovery. Like you need to recover the energy stores that you've expended during any training session. Fat and protein obviously play an essential role in terms of more repair and regeneration of cells and muscle cells and connective tissue and everything else. So you have, and this is why we have this pillar of targets. And when we talk about targets as this first thing is like the amounts that you're eating, the macros that you're eating, you know, and in the specific ratios that are based on your goal and what you're asking your body to do. And if you can get that big pillar done and aligned to what you're doing, you're going to see progress. What I commonly see is people mismatch this. So they'll go, oh, well, I'm training for the London Marathon, but I need to lose weight. So they'll go and increase the level of activity to be extremely high, but they're asking their body to do this on very, very low calories.
Yeah. So they're contradicting priorities.
Contradicting priorities, exactly that. And then they wonder why they're not performing well. They wonder why they get injured. They wonder why they're struggling. They wonder why they got fatigue, or they wonder why they're not seeing results in terms of either one of those.
You just listed off quite a few things there. So the result of underfueling towards a performance goal actually isn't binary. It's like there's lots of different possibilities of where those symptoms go. So it's not just you don't have enough energy to do it. You might notice it in a different way. It might come out in an injury or a stress fracture or not sleeping properly, low energy, mood being you've been grumpy basically. So by the sounds of it, it kind of depends. So you won't always know instinctively, but if there's something that doesn't feel right, that's where you might look first. So that's kind of the point.
Definitely. I think we're very good at masking potential underfueling as well, like through caffeinated drinks, pre-workouts, you know, getting through and this mantra of, you know, man up or
no pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain, you know, the grind, hustle culture. We're pretty good at kind of doing that. And for me, the actual nutrition element of this can be maybe pushed down the priority list to be like, oh, it doesn't matter if I don't eat before my workout, or it doesn't matter if I don't hit the amount of protein or carbs because, you know, like I can get through this. Like I saw someone on Instagram, they didn't eat their first meal until 5 o'clock in the evening and they're doing training, or these fasted for 72 hours, like, and they're doing this. And I'm like, there's so much information, and trying to distill through that is very challenging for the average person, even for us that are in the field, like as you know, trained professionals. It's very challenging to do. And what my goal is to just try and cut through that and simplify. Simplification is the main principle, but just simplify the whole process. Simplify what your goal is. Simplify what you need to be doing from a calorie perspective, from a practical application, so like how you actually do this within your day. It's trying to distill it down. And when we talk about basics, for me, like trying to do that is the first pillar that you need to do. Like you need to get the amounts that are aligned to your goal, to what you're asking the body to do. And if you can do that,
does it depend on the person for that, or is it a fairly universal thing? If you're working towards this, you need this.
That's a good question. It does. Nutrition is N=1. There is a lot of individuality. Okay, so this is why you would follow something and get very, very good results, and I would follow something very similar and get different results. Genetic predisposition, everything else. Like there's so many moving parts to it. Okay, however, there are some underlying fundamental principles that you need that can be applied to everybody. So if we take diets at the moment, all diets are simply a play on the principles. So if you look at ketogenic diets, if you look at fasting, if you look at paleo, if you look at whatever, for fat loss, the principle is creating a calorie deficit. How they do that is that method. So it might click for you in your life, in your setup, in your environment, to follow something like fasting, because it just works with your lifestyle. You know, you've got kids, you've got a long elongated day because you're getting up at 5 a.m. and you're not going to bed till 9 p.m. You go straight into work because you're seeing early clients. Actually, you know, manipulating your food intake might be very beneficial to you to be able to be consistent with your diet, which again is another fundamental principle for anybody following anything related with nutrition or diet. So for me, I wouldn't work. Like I would not find that the benefits of fasting allow me to be consistent with my diet, or the method of fasting would be consistent with my diet. So I would be better off maybe just going on calorie restriction and eating 3 meals a day, 1 snack, and just restricting my calories across each meal and having that balance, because I prefer to eat more regularly.
Yeah.
Whereas someone else that doesn't, that's cool.
Yeah, there's a little bit for me is when I have an appetite. So I've known all my life that I don't have an appetite in the morning, and it's always been a force. And there's been big periods of time where I have just forced breakfast down.
Yeah.
But over the last few years, I've decided to just try a different way and just see, how about I just don't eat until I'm hungry? So I've noticed it's normally around 11, 11:30, 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's my first meal of the day. It actually looks like breakfast, but it's at lunch.
Yeah.
But it seems to work for I guess my lifestyle as well. It kind of works in my lifestyle too. But the first reason was that I just don't get hungry then. Yeah. But when I am really hungry is in the evening. Yeah. So I tend to have 2 dinners. Yeah. So I'll have like an early dinner at 5ish, and then I'll have another dinner about 8, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it just seems to fit. So I'm probably eating roughly the same amount of calories.
Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to lose fat anyway.
Yeah.
Eating roughly the same amount of calories. I just put it at a time in the day where it probably works from my lifestyle, but also works for my appetite.
Right. Let's unpack that.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you've basically shifted your intake, correct? So you've just like delayed it in the morning, shifted it a little bit towards the afternoon. So again, if that's working for you, so if you were working with me, I'd be like, Charlie, do you have good energy? And you'd be like, yeah. Are you managing your hunger through the day? And you're like, yeah, I feel pretty good. My performance good, my mood good, my sleep good. Are these factors trending upwards or maintaining? And you'll be like, yeah. I'd be like, wonderful. Keep going with it. But if you're getting up at 5 a.m. and going and doing 90 minutes of cardio fasted, then not eating until 11:30, you're struggling through your day, wondering when you're going to finish, or wondering when your next meal is going to come because, I've been told I need to fast, and I don't have the ability to be able to eat this because so-and-so told me not to. You're then working against your lifestyle or your goal and what you're asking your body to do. So then that method is something that that you should then be adapting.
Yeah.
That's where you go, does it matter on the person? In essence, yes, but also, no, it doesn't, because there are some fundamentals. Like if you're asking your body to go and you're going like, I want to perform, I want to go and run a marathon, I want to go and run an ultra marathon, and I'm getting up and doing 2 hours of cardio in the morning, I'm strength training 3 times a week in the afternoons, I'm doing double sessions 3 times, and then you're eating 1 meal at 11:30, 2 training sessions, sandwich or bookend in that, and then you're working through the day, and you got kids, and then you're like, I'm just eating like 1,700 calories in the evening. I would be like, all your calories are away from your workout window. I was like, you're asking your body to do a lot of exercise in a very underfueled state. I don't think that that's conducive to helping you to achieve your goal.
The nuance to that is that when I train in the morning, I eat.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I fuel for it. Because I'm aware that I guess that I'm not necessarily the problem client for you. It's the conversation around sort of appetite in a way. But yeah, I'm aware that I need to fuel my training. So because I'm not trying to fat loss, I'm just thinking of performance when I train. I definitely fuel it, and I'll eat and I'll eat. And then if I do train heavily on a day, I don't think about, and I wouldn't even say I think that I fast. I just eat at different times to the average person.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like fasting to me. And
that's a very important point, that people will pigeonhole themselves to be like, I'm fasting. And no matter what happens, they fast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a tool. It's a tool in the toolbox. You can use it whenever you want. And it's a way to be able to allow you to be consistent with your dietary habits. You don't need to always follow and adhere to it. He's like, sometimes I don't eat carbohydrates. I'm like, it's not that I'm low carb. Sometimes I don't eat meat. It's not that I'm vegan. Like, you can just use these things to be able to ensure that you're finding across your week the things that work.
And you've spoken already about behaviours and using certain behavioural tools, and that this wasn't necessarily something that you had to worry about so much in elite sport because they just do as they're told on. They're just a bit more robotic in a way.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but like the elite sport isn't this complete different world to what the everyday person does.
Humans are humans.
Exactly.
Okay.
And these guys, I mean, I worked in football, so I didn't work in the women's teams. I didn't work with, older athletes. I didn't work with endurance athletes in a team, like in an elite sports setting. So obviously this is, men normally aged from 18 to 35. But they're humans. They have families. They still have cravings. They still want the same things. Yes, they are, elite in terms of what they're doing, but the dietary habits, the principles that I was following are almost identical. What I would give someone that is doing someone is playing football on the weekend. Obviously, the bridging the gap between optimal and practical is something that we try to do. So, like for the the person that's playing Sandy League, obviously they're not going to be doing as many of the optimal practices as potentially the elite athletes should be doing, but we're still trying to get them as much as we can to that optimal side of things. But yeah, the behavioural side of things was still a huge part. Habit forming, creating the right environment, still two huge things that we tried to do.
How do you do that? I mean, I know it's not necessarily something you can just quickly give me an answer, but what are some of the things that you find effective when you're trying to improve habits around diet?
So we talked about pillars here where we got targets, and then the other two pillars that I really like to focus on is habits and environment. So the big one for me, for anybody, is environment. So unfortunately, we live in the world now where our environment is very much geared towards gaining weight and gaining fat, whether this is through social media, whether this is through advertising, accessibility of highly palatable foods and highly energy dense foods. The environment that you create needs to be conducive to your goals, and if it's not, you're constantly using willpower to fight against that, and in the end you will lose the battle.
Yeah.
So it's the treat cupboard at home, it's walking past the bakery on the way to work, it's the office environment, it's not being prepared with your food, so you then have to go out into an environment where you have to make a healthy choice, which is almost impossible to do. So for the everyday consumer, like that's a key thing. Home environment, work environment, social environment, everything else that you can do. What is causing you to use more willpower, and how can you make a small change to try and do that? So people go to me, well, office, there's always someone's birthday, there's always something. I was like, well, if you can make sure that you eat a decent lunch, you can make sure that you maybe bring in a snack that you like to eat. So this could be a better version of a piece of cake. It could be some homemade banana bread. It could be a protein bar. It could be some yogurt and some raspberries or whatever. You can then eat that. Not every time that there's cake. I'm not saying don't be that person.
Yeah.
But if it's every day, you don't need to be having the M&S Rocky Road every single day. So
as delicious as it is, treat yourself rather than just make it part of your routine.
Well, if you treat yourself every day, it's not your treat. It's your everyday nutrition.
Routine, it's your diet. Yeah.
So exactly, it's your diet. It's your daily diet. So for me, that would be like a practical example of what I would advise someone to do. And when you get into that and you have that ownership on it, you feel empowered. Like you go like, no, I'm not doing that. Like I'm going to have it on that day. Now, if it's not something that's regular, then you don't need to put energy into there. Like, don't worry about the odd piece of cake every couple of weeks at someone's birthday. And like, that's not something that you need to worry about. It's your daily habits or the things that are doing more regularly that you need to focus on. When we're looking at when we're looking at the elite environment, people used to ask me, how do you coach nutrition for 35 players? I was like, the number one thing is you create the environment that makes it easier for them to make good choices.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's almost impossible for them to make a bad choice at the training ground, because we create the menus, we create the options for the food, we create the environment that makes it very, very easy for them to make a good choice. So they can't.
Yeah. So actually, in a way, this almost comes, we could go really macro here about society, and the individual is doomed to failure unless they're really, I don't know, if really motivated or knowledgeable, or they have to work really, really hard against the environment. So if we were try to think of big macro change, then it comes at a societal level, a government policy level, doesn't it?
Yeah, massively.
You've got to change the environment in order for people to be successful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, that's obviously a battle that a lot of people are trying to take on, and I think that's admirable. I'm all behind that.
It's huge. Wow.
It's huge. It's a huge thing to do, because it's just I can't see how it's going to change at that macro level. Like, obviously there are good things that are happening in terms of, you know, like consumers being more aware of how important healthy eating is, and healthy eating initiatives and all of this, and more awareness around nutrition. I think it's fantastic, but it's still a very, very challenging thing for us to navigate this environment. So,
and it sounds a lot that you're quite a pragmatic coach on this thing, and that you're aware that every now and again people might eat a bit of cake, every now and again people might go out for dinner with their friends.
Yeah.
And that, by the sounds of it, takes out the suffering associated with a typical diet.
Yeah.
And most people will say, "Oh, couldn't get on with this thing because it was just so hard. It just felt like I was constantly depriving myself all the time." But what you're saying is that there is a way to achieve your goals without
Massively.
sacrificing everything you like in life from a diet perspective.
Yeah, Charlie, I think you're right. Like, pragmatic is probably a very good description. Yeah. I approach nutrition with clients in a way about using a scale. Okay, so commonly what, I hate the term, influencers or people that would be bombarding you on social media are asking you to do is go from wherever you are on this scale of like no idea about nutrition to super knowledgeable and dialed in. Wherever you are on this scale, they're asking you to jump 3, 4, 5 places ahead and go, well, what you're currently doing, I want you to remove all of that. I want you to follow this strict meal plan. I want you to not eat until 5 o'clock and only eat eggs, or you don't eat anything but red meat, or you remove all your carbohydrates and you're only allowed this. That's a seismic change to what people are doing. The practicalities of this is that you might get, I don't know, 1 out of 100 people do that and go, I got amazing results. What they do is they take that before and after and go, so-and-so used my 10x health protocol and got incredible results. But there's 99 people that didn't. Arbitrary numbers. But for me, I'm going to people which is more boring. It's mundane. Track your current intake for 3 days. Let's look at what you're currently eating at this moment in time. Then let's calculate some targets based on what your goal is, and let's make small changes to what you're currently eating. Let's maybe reduce the mockers that you're eating. Let's reduce the snacks after dinner. Let's maybe not have this for breakfast and then have this, because that's going to affect how your hunger levels are across the rest of the day. Can you make one change to your breakfast and change your coffee from this to this? Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And all of a sudden we're maybe shaving 300, 400, 500 calories a day. Do that every day. You're then moving towards your goal without having to change too much else. I think people put way too much emphasis on like, oh, I can't eat carbs, I'm trying to lose weight. And so they change all their main meals. And then they just end up snacking. I think there's some easier wins that we can do.
You talk about pillars in a way that almost makes me think that these pillars are not universal to your world. They're just universal to a lot of wellness and lifestyle.
Yeah.
In that, if you think about the basic thing, doing the standard thing, the macros, getting enough macros. If you have your habits in line, and if you create an environment, you could apply that to exercise. You could apply 100%. It to sleep. You could do all these things. It just sounds so simple in a way. And unfortunately, Instagram, social media, they don't necessarily reward simple, because it doesn't grab your attention in the same way. You're like, oh, I thought I'd done it already. But actually it's just packaged up in an individualized way that ensures people are more likely to be successful with it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, habits aren't universal to nutrition. Specific nutrition, and environment is an incredible thing that everybody needs to involve. Everybody needs to focus on, regardless of what they're trying to do. Like, you need to create the right training environment. If you're going to the gym and you're going to a pure gym and training by yourself and you're not seeing results, you're not following a program, like, that environment isn't helping you achieve your goal of getting stronger, bigger, faster, more powerful. You know, it might be that you go to a class and you have more of a community and you have a coach-led, you know, training program where it's progressively overloaded, so you don't have to think about it. Your environment's going to help you then, as opposed to what a lot of people I see with nutrition, potentially training, maybe with the medical side of things as well, is that they would go, oh, well, I'm not seeing results. I need new targets. I need to change my macros. Oh, I need a new plan. Like, this didn't work. This method, I need to change this diet. Whereas in actual fact, that isn't the issue. Like, if you followed the advice here, that's great. What's poor is that you saw results and then you didn't build enough habits to be able to sustain what you saw, or your environment was just working against you. So you maintained it for 3, 4, 5 weeks, but then you regressed because you are constantly having to use willpower. And we know that's a resource that if you constantly are drawing on it, in the end, you're going to break. So I think that the environment and habit side of things is extremely boring social media content,
but it's true.
But it's essential.
I think it was Gary Neville said that, I'm sure it was him, he wasn't the most motivated athlete, far from it. And he wasn't the most motivated person. It's just that his routine was being a professional football player.
Yeah.
So he just carried out his routine. There were loads of days he wasn't motivated, but it didn't matter because his routine was literally get up, go to training, eat, train a bit more, do your individual stuff, do some analysis, go home, do the same again the next day. So it wasn't necessarily motivation. It was habit and routine, automation.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a quote that I use quite often is, you know, doing what you do when you don't want to will bring you the results you desire.
Yeah.
And not everybody will be motivated every day. I mean, there will be people that are more motivated than others. Like, you know, that's fine. Like that's them. Like, I think also throughout your lifetime, your motivation will you know, peak, and it will be very challenging at certain times. Like when my kids don't sleep, my motivation to go and train is very low. But I know that if I can just turn up, my habit is built into it, my routine is built into it, regardless of what's happening outside of this, I will do that. Same with nutrition. Like, no matter what's going on, I can always cook a quick meal or make sure that I eat healthily, because that's a habit that I've enforced in myself, that the majority of the time I take care of that, because I know the return on investment is so big. So like, say Gary Neville turned up because the return on investment was very, very good. If he sacked that off and just relied on motivation, then be nowhere near being a professional footballer.
Yeah. What some ideas you have for people that you often give out for sensible habits to create automations for food, for diet at home maybe?
Yeah, good one. I think trying to refine the variety that you have and eating similar things across the week can help you to be more consistent with your diet. I think often when we look at nutrition and we're like, oh, I need to have a different dinner every time, or I need to change my breakfast, or I need to have a new lunch every day, and all of this, it becomes very challenging then to figure out what works and what doesn't. It also makes it very challenging to prep and be consistent with this, and it causes more decision stress and prep time. Refining the amount, a couple of breakfasts that you rotate through, maybe 3, maybe a few lunches that you prep, or know where you can grab near your work or on the way to work. And if you can do that, you're taking control of that nutrition, because you're like, I know that the chicken pesto wrap from so-and-so, if I haven't made my own lunch, is really good. I feel good on it. I don't get an afternoon slump after it. It satiates me. Happy days. Like, for me, this is a massively overlooked kind of part of just refining, and then using times of the week where you do add a little bit of variety in. Could be dinners. I think when people have to include somebody else in their decision making process of, like, you know, normally it's like partners, roommates, kids, families, whatever, having a bit of variety or a bit of flexibility is often a nice thing. So I think trying to refine your choices is a big one. Learning to cook a couple of meals really well is a very overlooked thing. I think this day and age, we talk about environment, being able to just literally go on your phone and order something from Deliveroo or Just Eat is a very easy cop-out, expensive, easy cop-out these days. But if you can just be like, can I make, you know, a chicken and egg fried rice? Can I make a salad with, again, not having to cook, again, going to that scale, if you're trying to make everything whole food, organic, everything else, like, you can put so much pressure on yourself, and if you can't do that, you failed. Whereas if you can go, well, I'm just going to grab some like microwavable veg or potatoes from, the boil in the bag ones, that's going to be like potatoes, veg. I can pay a piece of chicken, salmon, tofu, halloumi, or whatever. I can cook that in like 5 minutes. Is that going to be better for you on spending £50 on delivery? Refining those choices, and I think having these like fallbacks is something that people, they massively overlook.
The pushback on this will be, if we refine, do we then not get enough diversity within our plant-based foods? Because a fairly regular comment I'm hearing at the moment is you need to get lots and lots of different types of plant-based foods in your diet in order to be optimally healthy. So what's the nuance with that?
So when I say refine, I don't mean make it boring and bland, right? So if I walk through my typical day, I would have like, most of the time I'll have like eggs with salmon or mushrooms or ham on toast for the morning, or I'll have like overnight oats. So in there I'm getting tons of different nutrients from the eggs, salmon, mushrooms, and then for my oats I'm getting fibres, I'm adding flaxseed to that, I'm adding berries, different berries to that, I'm adding nuts and seeds and yogurt to this. So in that, across my week, if I rotate those breakfasts, I'm getting a vast amount of nutrients in those. Then if I rotate my lunches between different vegetables, different protein sources, different fibre sources, different carbohydrates, I'm saying that I don't need to be having a different meal every day. But if I look across my day, I've got a lot of diversity in there. So you might be, I have tomatoes and cucumber and couscous and olives and feta, salad with some salmon at lunch or chicken at lunch or whatever, and then in the evening I'm having sweet potato wedges and steak or chicken and avocado and salsa and guacamole. Like,
so the diversity is there. You've just chosen what that diversity is going to look like.
Yeah.
By being organised.
Yeah. So like, I would be like, if you make fajitas, you can make chicken fajitas for a couple of nights. You could then have a chicken and sweet potato and coleslaw salad for the following few days. Again, like, you don't need to make loads of different choices. I'm just saying, like, you can still have a ton of diversity in your diet across the day. If you were saying like, yeah, I'm gonna eat like, simple scrambled eggs on toast, then I'm gonna have like eggs on like ham and sandwich for lunch, and then I'm gonna have like pasta and peas for dinner, like, and I'm gonna do that 5 times a week. I'd be like, you're taking what I'm saying.
Yeah, too literally.
Yeah, too literally. And then that is the, again, going too far. But to loop back, the diversity, the question is fantastic. Like, it's something that we should be questioning ourselves on, to be like, how many plant-based foods am I getting in my diet? How much diversity I get in my diet? What is my fiber intake? Because this is a good thing that people are talking about. Like, I want people to be banging the drum for eating more of this.
So the answer is you've got to try and work on both in a way. But what simple tips then around diversifying those plant-based foods would you give to someone? Is there like a real easy way for someone to understand how they do that?
We used to run a thing called the 5 colour challenge, where we would challenge people to eat 5 different colours across the day.
Why would the colour be relevant?
The colours of food will offer different polyphenols, different antioxidants, different micronutrients, and it just makes you more aware of getting in diversity and abundance. So if you've got to choose 5 different things, it automatically, as a default, encourages you to eat a little bit more different foods, different plant-based foods. So if you look at that, I'm going, right, I'm having blueberries and raspberries in my frozen ones in my porridge. Okay, so I'm eating 2 colours there. Then I'm eating tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers. I might eat 3 different colours there. Then I might have broccoli or cauliflower or onion or whatever in my red onion in my evening meal. Then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm actually at like 5 or 6 colours, and I've eaten 2 of the green, I've eaten 2 of the red, rather than being like, I've got to eat 5 portions. Like, it doesn't mean anything. And they could eat 5 portions of spinach, and I'm like,
this reminds me of like the bodybuilder diet. I've spent time with bodybuilders over the years, and they just always seem to be eating chicken and broccoli all the time.
Yeah.
It's just chicken, broccoli, rice, or chicken, broccoli, pasta. They're just volume, and they're just trying to get a volume of carb and something. But they see, I need to get some nutrients in our broccoli because it's got some protein in it.
Yeah, but do you know why? One of the reasons why they do that is to remove the error in terms of tracking as well. Like, they're trying to hit very specific numbers to elicit a body composition change.
Okay.
And the more variety they have, the harder that becomes.
Yeah.
So they just refine it down to be more consistent. Like, that's also one of the reasons that they do it. But broccoli is a great food to be including. It's relatively easy to prep. So again, that would be the thing where I'd be like, that approach is too refined. You're not getting that diversity, and you're taking what I'm saying about refining your choices and making it more, more of a rhythm with your diet, more consistent, to the nth degree.
So it sounds like now we've got a person thinking in the short term better about their food choices. They're not restricting too much. They're still enjoying the occasional treat, but they've made some basic changes to their environment, and they're trying to build these habits, and they understand their macros towards their goals. So they're probably going to lose a bit of weight, and by the sounds of it, you'd rather them lose a bit of weight slower than to this massive, drastic, sudden weight loss. And what I'm aware of is that lots of people, in fact, no one on this planet has a problem with weight loss, really, right? They have a problem with keeping the weight off in the end.
Yeah.
So how do you help with that? And I guess the answer is sort of already been spoken about. It's habits and environment. But are there any other things around keeping weight off, that weight management concept?
Yeah, I mean, weight management is a huge area. I think you've nailed it where, like, say, the weight loss, someone in their life, or most people in their lives, have gone through a period and they've lost a portion of weight. It could be half a kilo, it could be 10 kilos. But say the weight loss retention is where you really need to nail it. Doing it slower, and I'm not saying like painfully slow, but I'm saying don't be that you want expecting 3 to 4 kilos a week and you're just going to eating 750 calories a day and just starving yourself, expecting to see quicker results. The reason we want to do this is hormonally that it's much better for us because we're not placing so much stress onto our body. And we cultivate the skill and knowledge along the way. Whereas if you go to this 700 or very, very restrictive diet that causes you to lose weight loss very quickly, there is zero chance of you ever being able to sustain this. Okay? So if you can do it where it's more gradual, more moderate, you can start to see what works and what doesn't. You can start to see trends. You can start to figure out your patterns in your lifestyle that is allowing you to make these better choices. What you then do is, if you go through this period where you're like, oh, I'm going on holiday, I regressed a little bit, you've cultivated this skill here and understanding and knowledge to be able to do this again. Oh, I just need to tighten my diet up. I need to do X, Y, and Z that I was very successful with. If you don't do that, right? If you don't go through this period, what's your goal? What's the thing that you do? I'm just going to then, the only way I know how to lose diet is to go completely cold turkey and very, very restrictive again.
Another cabbage soup diet on the way.
And another stupid diet again. So then you go, oh, I don't really want to do that. So then you delay it, you then creep up more weight until it gets to normally January or September when the kids go back to school or it's post-summer, and you'll go, oh, I need to tidy things up here. And then you do these yo-yo diets a couple of times a year. But again, between that, you're not being able to sustain it. It's that skill and cultivating the knowledge and the awareness that people don't want to do. Like, I've spoken about this before, I think we need to normalize people putting effort into their diet for extended periods of time. Like, it's hard. Like, nutrition is very challenging, like, to consistently do well.
Yeah.
And that's why you need to cultivate habits. If you only do very short sprints, you're missing it. The approach you need to do is flip that. All diets should have a very long-term focus on health and performance with very short periods of body composition. Whereas what we do is we go, oh, I'm going to focus on my nutrition and training, and then it wanes, and then I just kind of drift through and I don't really do anything with it. Whereas if we can cultivate the skill and understanding and knowledge to extrapolate this out to a lifestyle, to habits, to something that is more, well, easier to sustain, you don't have to go through these big changes all of the time. And I think that's where a lot of people approach nutrition in the wrong way. It's like, I diet for this period of time and then I go back to my default setting, which is commonly what got you in that in the first place.
And the strange thing really is that what diet really is the thing that you eat on a regular basis. But actually, in society we've kind of flipped it the other way, and the dieting means that all this short term thing. So actually, we're trying to take it back to its origins. You know, the diet is that long term strategy. It's your lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
If you've got this person that's then tracking out over the long term, and they're making maybe some slow progress, at that point, if they're making slow progress, what is it then? Is it just more tweaking, more fine tuning, or what is there like? Is that common for you?
Yeah, I think the question needs to be asked around, what do we want to do long term? Like, ideally, you want to be able to maintain your weight long term. Like, if you look at all of the research, all of our weight trends up across our lifetime. So the goal for me is not about going on this yo-yo dieting. It's about learning how to maintain your weight and manipulate it depending on the situation that you're in. I want to lean out because of holiday. I want to get a little bit stronger because I'm doing an event. You can then manipulate it. So the goal for me is to try and understand what you need to do to maintain your weight long term. And if you do that, you then have the ability to kind of fluctuate either way. It's for boxing reference, it's the Ricky Hatton versus Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather stayed around his fighting weight all year round, cut down, couple of weeks, bosh, I'm ready, I'm fight ready. Ricky Hatton, bomb, up and down, big blowout, got to go through extensive, really stressful periods. There's only so long you can keep asking your body to do that. And for me, what we need to do is, like I say, approach nutrition from a health perspective, from an energy perspective, from a nourishment perspective, as opposed to just thinking it's about body composition. And that's the only way you can do that is if you focus on what am I going to be doing long term, as opposed to what am I going to do from January 1st to January 30th.
What are the key things that are nourishing your body that we haven't yet spoken about? Because there's a few other questions that I was keen to explore, but actually I almost feel like they're not as relevant here as what you've just said. Nourishing, if we're going to create a real fundamental principle here, is think about nourishing your body optimally.
Yeah.
So what have we spoken about so far with that?
Well, protein is a big thing. We spoke about calories at the start, but protein is essential. Like, we often pigeonhole it just in terms of building muscle, but it has so many benefits for, bodily functions, enzyme production, hormone production, digestive function, detoxification. It's an essential macronutrient. So we need to continually take it. We need to continually eat it. And, this day and age, we are bombarded with more protein foods and snacks and everything else. Yeah. So it's become a tiny bit easier to get protein. But for me, it's an essential thing. Like, there's, over our lifetime, we'll have a decrease in muscle mass. We get things sarcopenia, anabolic resistance, which there's a decrease in muscle mass. There's an increased requirement for protein to do a similar job for when we were younger. So protein becomes very, very important as a constant.
Does protein intake mitigate against that? As an optimal protein intake, that mitigates that muscle loss?
It can do, yeah. It can help. Like, there's always going to be naturally, like,
a drop off. Yeah.
But what you want to do is, like, again, you want to reverse it. It's like bone density. Bone density will naturally decrease over our lifetime, but if we strength train, if we eat an adequate diet, we can work against it. So for me, protein is something that we haven't spoken about. Now, protein is essential regardless of your goal. So if you're trying to build muscle, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're not active, if you're active, it doesn't matter. Like, you need to consume protein consistently. And a lot of the research lends itself to around 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight as a good target. Now, there will be a sliding scale up and down depending on what your goal. Not too much down, but like maybe up a little bit more if you're in a very, if you're more in a calorie deficit, or if you're trying a little bit more muscle. But a good point for most people to kind of be around consistently is around that.
What's your take on protein supplementation in order to ensure that they hit these targets?
Yeah, there's actually I was writing review on a recent paper that came out around common questions and misconceptions around protein supplementation in the International Journal of Sports Nutrition. It was an amazing paper, answered 11 questions on basically like misconceptions around it. Mm-hmm. Protein supplementation for me, like using a protein powder or like protein drinks or bars or something else, I think if it's the primary source of your protein intake, then we need to rethink this. But if it's a supplement or if it's a thing that you use to help boost your intake, to ensure that you're getting to an adequate level, I think it's very useful. I think they're useful things because A, the cost of food is going up, the accessibility of these are good, and I do think that if you can get a good quality protein powder, I do think it's something that you can use across your day that would be, let's say, beneficial, help you to achieve that goal of hitting that protein target, as opposed to, oh, what do? I have a chocolate bar or some snacks, or I'm really, really hungry, so then I overconsume loads of calories in my evening meal. Whereas if you put something like a protein-based snack, or you got protein in your breakfast earlier by adding a little bit of protein powder, then I think that there's a benefit there to including them in your diet.
It sounds like lifestyle is a pretty important factor here. Is that it's actually quite hard to spend lots of our time cooking, prepping, going to the shops. But yeah, if you do have a big bag or a tub of protein powder, then it simplifies things, makes it more likely you'll make good choices throughout your day.
You don't have to use it around your workouts. Like a lot of the time, people would consume a meal relatively close post-workout anyway. So that would be your lunch or your dinner or your breakfast if you're training first thing in the morning. Like, I don't think it's necessarily needed. I do think it's a nice thing to include across your day to bump your protein intake up and maybe plug a gap of where you're struggling. So if you know that your lunch is going to be really low in protein, you can take a sachet or a shake or whatever and bump that lunch up. Yeah. As opposed to going, oh, well, I had like one piece of ham in my meal deal that got me like 3 grams of protein. No wonder I'm like, it's obviously a lot more nuance around it, but like it will affect satiety. It may affect your recovery from if you trained in the morning, like all of these types of things. So bumping it up then might be a sensible thing to do.
And where we spoke earlier about my routine of eating, something that I do most days actually is I have a protein shake in the morning, because I'm aware that although I'm not deliberately fasting, there's a relatively long period of time where I don't have anything. Yeah. And I don't really want to lose any muscle mass. If anything, I'd rather be gaining a tiny little bit. So I'm going to make sure I hit my protein targets, and I'll have a protein shake in the morning. Yeah. I don't need an appetite to drink a protein shake. Yeah. So that works for me then. Just coming back to another point on shakes as well. Like, I remember when I first started training, it was almost like you absolutely must have a protein shake within 20 minutes. But what we forget is those studies that show that, they're just talking about perfection. Yeah. And like just off of perfection, which is like having it pretty much any other time of the day, is okay.
You're absolutely right, mate. Like, again, bridging that goal, optimal, practical. Yeah. Like, if you, like, the most key thing is total daily intake. Okay. Yeah. All of the research shown, like, it doesn't matter timing, distribution, etc. If calorie totals are matched, if protein totals across the day are matched, you get then a tiny bit of more benefit than on timing. So again, I'm looking at it, elite level, I need to be nailing your timing. Lads, take your shakes, get it in, got a game in 2 days time, just done a gym session, let's go.
Yeah, marginal gains matter in those situations.
Marginal gains matter because they're doing the basics to a world-class level, but most of us just don't need to worry about the 1%, so you need to worry about the 90%. And then when you've done the 90%, then you can start to add on these 1%.
Yeah, earn the right. You've got to earn the right to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the other part of that, like elite athletes, again, are programmed to do that, right? Yeah. That's their job. Their job is to follow those rules.
Well, yeah, exactly.
We both have a job where we don't get, well, I guess you get paid to talk about food and think about food, but we don't necessarily have a job where that's what we're thinking about all the time. So we have to be practical and pragmatic again. I think that's really important. Yeah. And the other thing, actually, just coming back to protein, is what's your take then on if someone's trying to grow muscle, hypertrophy training, how important would nutrition be for them? We've made a bit of a jest earlier about kind of and being really simple with their intakes because they're trying to control everything. But what are the kind of things that someone might look to do if they're trying to put muscle mass on?
Yeah, good question. So just to start with this topic, nutrition and training. For fat loss, nutrition is more important than training. And for hypertrophy, muscle gain, training is more important than nutrition.
How much more?
Man, that's hard to put a percentage on.
Is it slightly different to the other way around? Because
well, it just, if you say this right, the reason I say that is because you can do whatever training you want to do when you're trying to lose weight. If you control your calories and get into a deficit consistently, you're going to lose weight. You could rock climb, you could do CrossFit, you could do yoga, doesn't matter, right? You're going to lose weight because you're creating an energy deficit from your food intake. If you want to preserve and build as much muscle mass, then obviously you want to include some resistance training in that. When you're trying to get stronger and bigger, and cause a hypertrophic response in your muscles, doing the right type of training is the key first step. If you do not do this, I could give you the best muscle gaining diet on the planet. You are not going to see results because you're not placing the stimulus to elicit that response. So that's why it has to be the training is more important when you're trying to get bigger, stronger, more powerful, and grow your muscles before you before you start to really nail your nutrition. If you don't have that, it's not going to work. Now, if you just train and disregard your nutrition, then you might get some results, but they're going to be nowhere near as good as if you know your nutrition.
Can you think any examples of over your career where people have been anomalies there and they've got a terrible diet and they still seemingly manage to perform?
Well, genetics again. Like I've seen some people that at 19 are like absolutely enormous, super athletic, and you look at their daily diet and you would be like, wow, how are you like that? Like genetics play a huge role, but genetics, like the gun environment, pulls the trigger, so they will get found out in the end if they don't tie the nutrition up. I see it a lot. I mean, depending on the level of activity, you can potentially out-train a bad diet or a poor diet, definitely. But my argument to this is like they can get away with it, but imagine how good they would be if they tied their diet up. That's what they go, oh, it's fine. I'm training all of it. I'm training 4 hours a day for my Ironman and I'm lifting weights. It doesn't matter. Like, or CrossFitters, I'm training 6 hours a day. It doesn't matter what I eat, but it does. Because again, we're pretty good at getting through. We're pretty good at like doubling down and grinding it out. But imagine if you fueled your body correctly. Yeah. And like, that's always my argument. And when people do it, they go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, I ate some carbohydrates before my CrossFit session and I felt incredible. I'm like, yes, because you were hanging by a thread because all you did was just fuel yourself with BCAAs and Nocco and caffeine.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it because I wasn't necessarily sure like whether, because I've heard stories as well. I've worked in sport long enough as well to see some of the absolute trash people put in their body and get away with it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that is your take on it as well, that imagine how good they could be if they did eat well, because it kind of feels right that that's how it should be, that these people, although they get away with it, that's still probably not the optimal way.
They could. The thing is that I say to them, like, imagine how good you could be now, but it's the longevity piece as well. It's like, imagine how good you could be for this extended period of time. You know, look at Ronaldo, look at, you know, to an extent, I've worked with Harry Kane and I know he's super dialed in, and like he will be able to play till he's late 30s because he's very much dialed in terms of what he puts into his body. And when there's no reason why Ronaldo can't play till he's early 40s, definitely, because he's done this from the time he was 19. He hasn't got to what a lot of people would do, is they get to 31 and then they start to pick my brains and be, Lee, like, what can I do to help me, you know, extend my career by another year? I'm like, man, it's like compound interest. You start investing when you're 19, you know, you put £100 away. It's much better than you start when you're 41.
And I think the good news for us in general population is that we can compound interest into our later decades. We don't have to think about our careers being 15 years. You know, our careers are our lifetime. So if whether we're teenagers, 20, 40, 60, there's still a bit of time at whichever area in order to make those long-term changes towards putting your body in a healthier place.
Yeah.
And we're seeing as a huge emphasis now on longevity and a huge emphasis on living healthier into our future, looking more long-term. You know, Peter Attia talks a huge amount about this, and with real clarity, and protein's a big part of that.
Yeah.
We've covered that already. Another part of it is understanding your blood sugars, and this is coming across a lot. You see big influential people on social media talking about CGM machines, continuous glucose monitoring machines. What's your take on the use of those in the general population, and how effective that might be for helping people be healthier?
Yeah, I love Peter Attia.
Yeah, me too.
I think a very similar approach to nutrition and wellness and longevity as him. I agree with most things he says. The CGM argument for me is, I just think it's a dangerous thing for the Gen Pop in terms of using it for weight loss. The reason is that I'm all about people raising their awareness of their nutrition. Okay, essentially this is getting data, like a Whoop or tracking your calories or something. Like, yeah, you got a Whoop on, putting that on and looking at your blood sugar. I disagree with the approach of it in terms of like demonizing the rise in blood sugar and insulin causing all of these negative things. Like, it's a natural response to when we eat. Managing your blood sugars, definitely. You know, we don't want to be having consistently elevated blood sugar. We don't want to have, you know, insulin consistently high across, you know, the day, across the week, across the month. Like, definitely, I'm all on board with that. But basing your food choices off of like a CGM machine and just trying to flatten the curve of insulin and trying to do something that is a natural response to eating, I think is not correct, because it's basically just saying don't eat carbohydrates or anything that's going to cause you to spike in insulin. And I'm like, well, when we're talking about muscle growth, insulin is a very, very beneficial thing. You know, we're talking about it's a storage hormone, and it's something that if you can manage, great. If you remove it, there's very, very negative things that can happen from your health. So I just don't like the CGM approach in terms of weight loss. Again, I think it's a hack, it's a shortcut that people are looking to do, as opposed to putting some effort into their diet and actually identifying, oh, what am I eating? How can I make some better choices? And they're just kind of looking to it. And I think that it's a fad. 5 years' time, we won't be talking about it.
Really?
That's my prediction. I just think that it will just go back to like, oh, do you remember when we used to stick this thing on our arm and look at our blood sugars, and it used to just tell us exactly the same thing of just like, oh, eat more fibre, manage your carbohydrate intakes to the level of activity that you're doing, eat protein, eat really good nourishing foods. Like, every time I've seen anything in terms of like Zoe or anything, any reports, basically it's telling me to do that. I haven't done it, clients, etc.
So ultimately, the device that tells people what you're essentially saying, we kind of already know, and we could already teach people a different way. Is there any value in the fact that it's an internal measurement for certain people who need a bit more convincing, who need to connect with their own responses? Because to me, what you've said actually makes complete sense, is that it doesn't actually change the game in advice terms. We advise the same kind of stuff, and maybe actually it demonizes certain things that don't need to be demonized.
Yes.
But are there certain people that need a different way of...
I mean, if they can genuinely, hand on heart, come to me and go, I've tried this, calorie counting, I've tried looking at my current intake and putting some effort into my diet, I've tried all of these things, and when I say try, I mean like properly tried, then I'm not against it. Like you said there, my issue with it is it demonizes a natural response in the body, and that the only way to mitigate that is to remove carbohydrates, which they're encouraging people. Let's say they're not encouraging you to remove carbohydrates, they're just encouraging you to, let's say, demonizing certain foods that are more than fine to be having in your diet in moderate amounts or paired with other foods. And that's the issue that I have, because then it creates this you're going down like disordered eating side of things. Like, I can't eat that because it's going to spike my blood sugar.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then I think it's a dangerous world. Then I think it's that rabbit hole that I don't know if you go far down it. If you keep going down it, I don't know how you're going to get back out, because now you then know, if you've seen that data, even if you've done it for a month, you now know that, oh, I don't eat oats with honey because that spikes my blood sugar. Whereas if you did that and manage your calories across the rest of the day, and that works for you, and you go, I feel really good on this, I love eating this, but now I've got to eat an omelette, which causes me stress in the morning because I don't have time to make that. Like,
yeah,
I have an issue with it.
I'm intrigued by the connection with that sense, that intrinsic sense. That it's almost like people need to just learn that ability to look inwards and go, how do I feel once I've had that food? Because that's what the device, I guess, is trying to do, is give you an external measurement of an internal change.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it is. But maybe there is a way of us connecting with our own sensations and feelings of, when I have these foods, it seems to consistently make me really low and tired. And maybe that's the...
Charlie, you're absolutely on the money. Like, on the money. Raising your awareness is something that people don't do. We are on autopilot. We just go through, and with nutrition, it is something that we disregard the importance of. Maybe because we have to do it so frequently. We don't have to. We can fast till, eat one meal a day. But if you know what I mean, we have to make a lot of decisions around it. But we disregard that our awareness is terrible. The awareness of where to get good food, the awareness of how many calories are in certain foods, the awareness of how that food actually made me feel from a digestive point of view, from an energy point of view, from a focus point of view, from a training perspective. We're so bad. And that's where it loops back round to me going, well, refine your choices and figure out, does that make you feel good? Because I know now that the breakfasts that I eat are good. And then this is what we work with clients. I'm like, you can have your 2 or 3 breakfasts. And they're like, I don't even have to think, because I know that it makes me feel good. I perform well in my job. I get through to lunch and I'm ready to eat. Or if I do get caught short, I feel fine because I'm in control. But again, people are going to these devices to try and give them that magic bullet. And I'm like, again, you're maybe, I am data driven. I do think that getting data is a very good thing, but I think you've got to get the right type of data.
Yeah. And the pendulum has swung quite a long way towards these devices in the last couple of years, perhaps. And as with any pendulum, it's going to swing back the other way. Your prediction is going to swing back quite hard. So
I definitely think so. Yeah. But if you look at nutrition in any space, like paleo was massive. Now there's a few people that do it, but it's not really something we talk about. It's eggs are got a load of cholesterol and don't eat more than 3 a day, and now people are eating 8 eggs, and eggs are a superfood and thing, and same with red meat, and now everyone's eating mince and burgers for breakfast and chopping boards on Instagram, and it's like low fats, the way forward, high fats the way forward. Now it's back to low fats the way forward. It's high carb, all of it. Like you say, I love the analogy of this pendulum swing. I think the CGM, in 2-3 years time, will be gone. I hope it is.
So what's the future of nutrition? Do you have a crystal ball and you can see forward?
There'll be something else, mate, that comes up, and then we'll be talking on a podcast in 3 years' time going, this is a load of rubbish, isn't it? Like, that's why, genuinely, I love people like Lane Norton, I love James Smith, people like and Peter Attia, people like this, because if you look at them, their message hasn't changed. Like, they've obviously changed their minds on a few things, and they've been very open. But their message,
that's the right way, by the way. Changing your mind, I think, should be encouraged, and you shouldn't get so rigid in your thinking that you get too caught up. But actually, that's interesting as well, that the people that you're referencing there, you respect them because their message has been very consistent over time.
Very consistent. Like, if you look at them, they haven't adhered to. That's the wrong way. What they've done is they've got a message and they're trying to deliver it in an incredible way, right? But what they haven't then done is gone, oh, well, I've said this message for the last 2 years. I need to get more extreme. I need to get even more sensational with it. They've actually just keep finding different ways to say the same thing. And then what that does is that different way might click with somebody. Oh, I needed to hear it in that form, in that way, in that method, in that, platform. Great. Because now I'm like, people that are promoting a message that I think everybody needs to listen to, are doing it. It's evidence based. It's real world. It's practical. It's rooted in the principles. And if you can do that, then amazing. When people are taking one element of a process, so one element of fat loss, insulin, okay, and then going like, well, we'll just focus on this. Then there's so much nuance. There's so many other physiological processes and lifestyle factors, behavioural factors that you need to come into play, that if you just hook onto one thing, in the end, that pendulum swing is going to come back, or you end up having to go even further down the rabbit hole to keep getting likes, content, attraction. And that's where I love a few select few people. Ben Carpenter's another one. Talks about fat loss, but his message is the same. It's like, no, that does not work. Like, it might work for a few people that are going, I've found that I've seen results using my CGM. Why? Because you created a calorie deficit, you're eating adequate protein, and you probably stopped eating all the crap that you were eating and improved your overall diet. Now, do you need that to tell you that?
Some people would argue yes.
Some people, yes.
Did they need that, or did they need to work with a coach perhaps who can help them see that a different way?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
If they've then got results out of that and been able to sustain it in a healthy way, and that they understand the science behind insulin being something that is going to happen for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, then I'm happy for you to go and spend the money on it. Yeah. But if not, I'd rather you spend more on your shopping.
Yeah.
And get better food.
What are some other people or books or resources that you'd advise for people to tap into or look up if they're interested in learning a bit more about this kind of thing?
I get this question a lot. I always find it hard because people's levels of nutrition knowledge is quite vast. So I think if you can search those people out, and they've done a lot of podcasts recently, I would go and listen, like type them into Apple Podcasts or Spotify and look at the podcasts that they do. I think that's the really good point. Like Lane Norton's got some really good exposure recently on Diary CEO, Rich Roll. He's done Huberman. And I think if you can listen to him in terms of like the science, like we talked about this sitting on the fence, like he sits on the fence quite a lot. He'll probably be a little bit more opinionated than say me or someone else, but he articulates it very well, and it's just the stuff that has been proven, but he talks about it in a practical way as well. So I would do that as my first thing, and then there are resources online. You know, he writes. There's these things called MASS, which is monthly applications in sport and science, by the guys by Stronger by Science, where they review research papers and break it down and give you the science. Lane does one called Reps as well. Like if you're a little bit more kind of coach or a little bit more interested in more of the advanced stuff, then definitely get that, because it's taking the science, taking a paper, analysing it, breaking it down and providing you with a practical summary and takeaway from it, rather than just typing in something on Google.
Anything we haven't spoken about today that you wanted to raise as we approach the end of today's podcast?
No, I think for me, the basics are something that people often dismiss as important. And the key thing is that you need to do the basics consistently, and you need to do them consistently well. And I don't think there's any other area that it probably is more important than in nutrition, because you have to do it so frequently. Like with training, you could train 1 hour a day, 4 days a week and see results. But out of that week, the amount of times that you have to make decisions on your nutrition is so many more. So you need to find a rhythm, a pattern of eating that works for you. Like we go back to your one at the moment. And you need to ensure that you have this foundation, and you can always revert back to the basics, because that for me is just where a lot of people go wrong. They have this wild swing with it. They're off the wagon, they're on the wagon. And if you can just try to refine this, bring it down, and just be a little bit more consistent with the basics, you're probably going to find that when you get into that pattern and you feel good, then deviating either way is a lot easier.
Perfect summary. So if we just start wrapping up here, and question I've been asking everyone in recent podcasts is, what does Better Never Ends mean to you? That's the name of our podcast. I'm keen to get lots of different messages here and lots of different insights into what that might mean from your perspective, either in your life, in your career, whatever that means to you.
Yeah, I think it's a constant pursuit of learning. That would be my first thing, like being better. And I think it's a constant pursuit of, enhancing you as a person, your personal growth, like that growth mindset. For me, that's what, when you say better never ends, like that's what I look at. Like I want to constantly be learning, and whether this is learning in nutrition or learning to be a better parent or learning to be a better husband or whatever. Like for me, I think it's something that we, societally, we maybe go up, well, I finished uni or finished school, like that's the end. And actually, I think you really need to try and focus on continually learning. And if you have that growth mindset, then that comes as as part of it. And to quote, my boss, he has the Ollie Marchon is without limits. And again, it's the same thing. Like you have to constantly be striving to just be better. Like that next step. I think sometimes we can get overwhelmed with trying to be like, the best at everything, but actually it's just trying to make that small improvement, having that growth mindset. I think that's just such an important thing.
Sounds like your wife and kids will be the beneficiary of that as well.
It's very, very challenging at the moment with a 3.5 and a 1-year-old.
Yeah. Yes. We're thankfully just out of that. Yeah, we're 3 and nearly 7. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
A bit more peace going on.
Give me some good news, Charlie. Does it like
it gets easier?
That's easier. What I wanted to hear.
And Liam, where does someone find you? How does someone get in touch with you if they want to learn a bit more from you?
Best way is Instagram, Liam_nutritionist. It's the only social platform I really use. Like I don't really do anything else on YouTube or Twitter or anything else. I do provide a lot of information on there. So a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about today is put down into more kind of like bite-sized pieces. Anything that people want to know more of or kind of dive into a little bit more detail, please message me on there. That would be the best place to go.
Thanks very much. Off to eat a healthy meal.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Better, provider of health, wellness and performance services based in central London. You can book in for face-to-face services at either of our 2 clinics, one in Soho and one in the city. You can also follow us on Instagram at Better Never Ends, or head over to our website for more information about the clinics or the podcast at www.betterneverends.com. And of course, if you want to send us an email with any feedback, questions or suggestions for future episodes, then email us on podcast@betterneverends.com. And finally, thanks to Brian Long for editing the show. Without him, it's absolutely no doubt in my mind that these would never have seen the light of day, and it will allow this podcast to continue on for as long as I'll keep recording them. So thanks very much, Brian.